Welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Spidey swung to impressive heights with his sequel, the second one. Now, some of the industry trades have been quick to point out that Spidey couldn't top Cap, but come on. We're talking about a $3 million difference here. They are essentially the same. No, the point of interest here is that Captain America the Winter Soldier was able to bring in this number with an early April release date, while The Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't able to deliver the amazing numbers we've come to expect with an early May release date. Last year, Iron Man 3 debuted with $174 million. The year before that, The Avengers with $207 million. And in 2010, Iron Man 2 did $128 million. Now, one could argue that the rest of Hollywood simply has yet to catch up with what Kevin Feige and company are building with their Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yet don't forget that the first Thor underwhelmed this same weekend in 2011, while Spider-Man 3 brought in $151 million way back in 2007. So what do all these numbers really mean? Besides the obvious necessity that Superman vs. Batman not back down from its May 6, 2016 release date, breaking what's somehow become a tradition of Marvel movies kicking off the summer movie season? They mean that it's disappointing Spidey didn't crack the century mark, but what he did earn ain't bad. Heck, it would have been also nice if Cap had topped $100 million with his debut, but again, what a difference that month makes when it comes to perspective. Speaking of perspective, maybe if Cap hadn't raised the bar so high just a month out and overseas buzz hadn't been so mixed, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 would have topped the century mark. But coulda, shoulda, woulda. Let's focus on what we've got. A $92 million debut stateside and a truly amazing overseas haul of $277 million in just 3 weeks. That means The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is already almost halfway to reaching the entire worldwide haul for the 2012 reboot. So Sony better hope Spidey's B+ cinema score, A- for moviegoers under the age of 25, is a more accurate snapshot of audience response than the more spirited discussion taking place on the internet. Yes, what matters now is how long Spidey can stick to the top of the box office, which depends on word of mouth and competition. And it's word of mouth which will help determine if Peter Parker can take on Seth Rogen and Zac Efron next weekend. It's impossible to guess right now as we really are getting two different pictures, cinema score versus the internet. But one interesting thing we do know for sure about the audience is that for Spidey, it's skewed young, with 51% of the audience under the age of 25, while in comparison, Captain America the Winter Soldier skewed older, with 57% of the audience over the age of 25. And fascinatingly, while Marvel has tried to promote spunky leading ladies with Gwen Stacy, Black Widow, Jane Foster, and Pepper Potts, all those movies brought in audiences that were mostly male, somewhere in the 60th percentile. The superhero movie that did bring in more women? Man of Steel, with a more even 56-44% split. Maybe that's why Warner Brothers and DC are so keen to add Wonder Woman to the mix. Speaking of Man of Steel, Captain America the Winter Soldier finally surpassed it this weekend on the worldwide stage. The next superhero movie in Cap's sights? The Amazing Spider-Man. Boy, this is all starting to seem so incestuous. As for movie stars wearing a different kind of tights, Cameron Diaz and company dropped a little over 40% in their second weekend. Not a great hold, but stronger than Bad Teacher back in 2011. The Other Woman seems to be the movie audiences love to pay to hate, as the $20 million flick is already up to $216 million worldwide, despite the internet backlash. See, Sony, there's hope for Spidey 2 yet. Elsewhere in the box office, religious films continued to impress, as both Heaven is for Real and God's Not Dead enjoyed some of the smallest drops in the top 10. But the smallest went to the Grand Budapest Hotel, which has become far and away Wes Anderson's most successful film to date, doubling the Royal Tenenbaums worldwide haul from back in 2001. Plus, it's sure to make a killing later down the road on demand if it's an awards frontrunner, as widely expected. It's also worth noting that Rio 2 finally crossed the century mark stateside, yet is still about another $100 million behind the first installment worldwide. In the specialty market, Belle posted respectable numbers, but not good enough to make her an early awards frontrunner a la Grand Budapest. And as for Walk of Shame, while theaters were as desolate as the streets Elizabeth Banks finds herself on in the movie, it apparently did very solid business via streaming. Yet more evidence that a day-and-date release for smaller movies in both theaters and on demand is the way of the future. I bet Bad Words wishes it had used that model. As for this coming weekend, Zac Efron is expected to help power up Seth Rogen for one of Rogen's biggest debuts yet, and what would be a career-saving debut for Efron. Mom's Night Out and Legends of Oz: Dorothy's Return are also hitting theaters with less stellar results expected. Should they also be coming out on demand? And that's the weekend box office. I'm Grace Randolph, and we just did some movie math. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope it'll go beyond the trailer for these other top movies.